Hello, this is Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. The building is locked. No one can get in there, and they live in fear. So call first, 612-315-6778. The problems of being a tenant. We do the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence, what's going on in the world today. We try not to be disparate. We're Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. There's a lot of questions going on right now in terms of are we in the Great Tribulation? And I wanted to follow up and show you something interesting, which is a linear Matthew 24, and also go through the sixth seal and the sixth trumpet and the sixth bowl, just to see the perspective of timing and why some things seem to be inside the Great Tribulation, which is basically 7 years, and some things seem to be outside and what sets it up for that. So hopefully this will give you a better perspective to make you realize, oh, we're not in the Great Tribulation. We're close, we're in the birth pangs, but we're not there yet. So the contention has always been, my messages don't really edify you. Why is that? Well, because I talk about reality, and I try to give you information so that you can make good decisions based on what my patterns research is about the end of days. So the question from, say, and I have friends, I won't name names right now, that really think that the books are shut up. So that's Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Well, we're there. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. And knowledge is increasing. So the other point is Revelation 22:10 from John. Do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. I believe that your hearts are edified through preparation, through understanding what's going on. There will be less fear. So would you rather guess or know? Well, has the tribulation started? No. Stan has some problems. I've met him before. Uh, he likes to make money, and he's a salesperson. I mean, he's just a Bible salesperson, but he does do more research than anybody else. So the main thing is he cites some stuff that I don't agree with, but he at least he agrees that the tribulation has not started, and there are certain signs. We're going to go through some of those signs today. So he's watching things closely, so am I. The fall is traditionally that time to watch very closely, and we're still in that time where it could kick off. I mean, it would be boom, 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 like day after day after day. And so I feel that you're edified more by knowing what's going on. So rather than, there are no Bible verses saying predict rapture days, but the problem is everybody does that. There's a guy named Jeffrey Grider that Now the End Begins. He's picking rapture dates all the time. This is Harold Camping. He's dead now. He picked out the date. I saw the billboards too. I was driving out to Denver during that time and I saw the billboards. There's nothing in the Bible that says picking rapture dates is going to edify you. Don't be infants tossed about by waves and blown along by every wind of teaching, at the mercy of people clever in devising ways to deceive, Ephesians 4:14. So here's another one that's very deceptive right now, and they have millions of dollars to spend on this idea. So as we come along towards the mark of the beast, we're not there yet. Okay, they're the SDAs, and they're good people, but they're pushing a nice theology. It's a good one, but a bad eschatology, straight out of Ellen White. So they're going to say the seal of God is the Sabbath day, worshiping on the Sabbath day, and the mark of the beast is worshiping on Sunday. So when it comes time for whatever it happens to be that's the mark of the beast, they're going to say, no, 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 it's Sunday worship. They're wrong, okay? And they're proposing that there's going to be a Sunday law coming up anytime now, and that'll be the mark of the beast. Yeah, there's going to be persecution against us. That's the fifth seal, but it is not based on Sunday. So you're fine. So don't let this wind, don't be an infant tossed about by waves and blown by every wind of teaching. Some of this 1844 stuff is really, really bad from a few different people. So one other sign that we're not in the Great Tribulation is we're waiting for a strengthened covenant. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan are not great nations. They're little tiny puny nations, okay? So he, the Antichrist we'll call him, shall confirm. It's Gavor. It is strengthened. He shall strengthen the Brit, the covenant with Rabim, with great ones, for one heptad, that's 7 years. In the midst, that's 3.5 years in, he shall cause the Zavak. That is a festival peace offering that if you are ritually pure, you can join in and eat. And a mincha, that's an afternoon grain offering at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon to cease. And on the kanaf, the wing of the abominations is making desolate, even until the complete destruction, a destruction that is decreed, shall be poured out upon the shomem, the desolator, the Antichrist, we'll call him, the destroyer. That's Daniel 9:27. It hasn't hit yet, okay? We are not at the point where we have increased this covenant, this Abrahamic covenant, with enough powerful, great nations. Rabim is not just any puny little nation. So keep in mind, that's what it has to be. It has to, you'll see it being added to. It hasn't gone away, people, okay? Whoever's working on this is still working on this, okay? Whether it's Trump or Biden. Okay, so the other thing is I'm working on hard on things that can be solved, and I'm getting traction on this. Some of my better friends, Chuck is one of them, and I'll cite him again in a minute. Chuck likes this, and Chuck does a lot of research, and Gary Stearman from Prophecy Watchers is agreeing with this, and other people are agreeing with this, that it isn't the 10 kings in Europe. So we're not waiting for the Antichrist, you know, the Left Behind series where Nikolai is over in Europe and it's 10 kings in Europe. That's not it, guys, okay? When you really read the text, the mind of the beast, it's the activity, it's the programming of the beast, of these 10 kings, will hand it over to the beast in 1 hour. And the only people that can do things that fast in 1 hour, and really are kings that have not existed yet, are Facebook and Tesla and Microsoft and Google and Apple and Tencent and Amazon and all of these big, powerful AI companies. That is, when you see the mind of the beast in nome, is the Greek word for that. Probably, oh, it would be gnome. I'm sorry. So anyway, in the Greek, when you see that, you'll see it's not the mind itself. It is the programming of that. And so you need programming first, and they're working on it now. It's AI right now. And so that will be what dominates you, not 10 silly little puny kings in Europe someplace. So what else is going on? What time is it? We are in Sukkot, that's Tishrei. That is the first month of the civil year, we'll call it, and technically Nisan is the first year of the religious calendar, and so there's a few different New Years. So we're in the true Sukkot right now. That's a good time. That's a joyous time. We're actually in Hoshana Rabbah today. That's John 7:37, the water libations, all the fun times. This is a great time frame. There's another bad time frame coming up, and that's around Halloween every year, and that's the false Sukkot. So read 1 Kings 12 about Jeroboam's false Sukkot. That's exactly a month after the true Sukkot, and it is evil because they wouldn't come down to Jerusalem to celebrate like they were supposed to. And it's generally around Halloween. So every year I look at the calendar and I monitor things to see if we could potentially go in, and we're not going in this year because it's just too soon. I mean, we're basically about a month away from that time frame. And unless we have day by day horrible activities, we ain't going in this year. Okay, so I believe you're edified by knowing what's going on rather than guessing all the time. I think that the time frames, and we're going to show you the 1260s time too, and we're going to show you the dates outside of that range too. But generally, if you do it any year, it would be about Cheshvan sometime. That's the next month coming up from after Tishrei, to Yom Kippur of any year later on, and I'll argue that Yom Kippur is the day that he returns, based on God cannot return 1 second before the fullness of his allowance for repentance and to forgive us from those sins. So it has to be during the Yom. Well, no, it would be the Tekiah Gedola, the big, the huge trumpet blast at the end of Yom Kippur when our sins are forgiven. So I'm arguing the linear birth pang theory. I'm going to show you some signs about that. I'm arguing that we're in seal 3. Seal 4 is coming up. Seal 4 is death. Lots and lots of death. There's a flawed doctrine out there called imminence, which means nothing needs to occur. Well, things are occurring all day, every day. And that's tied with the rapture doctrine. Your mother knew she was pregnant with you, and these signs resemble birth pangs that we're feeling right now. And so there's no conclusion in seal 7. We just go right into the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls, and we're going to go through that today. So the thing that prompted me, and Chuck, I love you dearly, but he can't stand Sadhu. I'm only citing this as a way to think differently and to test the scriptures in a different way. So we're going to show you this. This is Sadhu's comments on, Lord, what's going to happen after this? How long will this last, Lord? And then God replied to him, this is Sadhu's comment, see famines, pestilences, and earthquakes. Okay, in order. And I've seen the pestilence shaking the world. Next, there will be earthquakes. So he's giving a linear feel to Matthew 24. I've never looked at it that way. So this is very interesting. In the same way, there will be great earthquakes in several different places. So I've got a buddy named Ben Davidson. He's not my friend, but I just think of him as a friend. And he has suspicious observers, and he's basically agreeing with Sadhu. The next thing we're going to see is earthquakes. Okay? So we have seen the famines. That's technically seal 3. We have seen the pestilences. We'll call it the CV and the jab. Okay? And that is part of death. And you'll see more deaths coming. I'm sorry if it doesn't sound edifying, but I think it's better for you to see this, and we'll see the linear format in just a moment here. Earthquakes are next, according to 2 different sources, 2 different witnesses. Great earthquakes will occur, leaving many dead. This is Sadhu again. There will be great earthquakes that will kill hundreds and thousands of people. Okay, so Sadhu is saying that. Whether you agree with him or not, it's an intriguing concept to look and see if Matthew 24 is linear. So let's do it. Oh, and first, we'll get to those verses in just a couple of more minutes. I wanted to cite Ben here. So this is first Hal Turner talking about the sun. Ben does all the research on it that I like. And so what we're noticing here in the left-hand side, according to Hal Turner, is a horseman on the sun back on August 25th of 2021. Very interesting to see that. We're seeing more activity from the sun. That will drive more earthquakes. So more solar activity during a solar minimum. Well, we're going back into a higher peak. Okay, so we're coming out of a minimum right now. We go through these cycles. Just get used to it. We're coming out of 24, I think, or going into, I don't know. Here it is. Yeah, we're going into 25. So we're entering an uptick. So Ben Davidson is reporting on that. And we're, as of here's September 28th, strong CME erupts. And so we're in kind of a situation where we might see northern lights up here in Minnesota. It's possible. So be aware that this is my second witness of greater earthquakes as we have more solar activity and we have a thinning electromagnetosphere. So Ben Davidson, again, increasing solar energy. And so I've got my 2 witnesses, plus me, looking at the Bible. Increased solar activity causes more earthquakes and volcanic activities. And here it is in the Canary Islands. You're seeing more volcanoes, and you'll see more. So you'll see basically more asteroids get through. You'll see more solar energy get through, whether it's a CME, which is a coronal mass ejection, or it is the solar wind from a coronal hole. Both send waves like basically shoveling snow. You'll see the waves coming at you, okay? And it kind of bunches up on the blade. That's basically what it is. And so you'll see more activity like this volcanoes or these happening, and more earthquakes. So we do the philosophy of the end of days. We look at the birth pangs, and we try to interpret the Bible properly. We look at the news events. The Bible's the most important source, but figuring it out is difficult. I mean, obviously, people are digging into Revelation now because they think it's the end of days, and it takes time to figure things out. So once again, I'm going through the 6th seal, the 6th trumpet, and the 6th bowl. And we're not into this yet. We're not up to this level. We're only moving from seal 3 to seal 4, but I want to show you that this is survivable, and I'll give you 2 verses in just a moment on that. So as I watched, as he broke the 6th seal, that's due down the road in a while here, but we'll see some of the signs earlier of more earthquakes and more issues like asteroids. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black as sackcloth worn in mourning, and the full moon became blood red. So the next full moon will be Cheshvan next month. And that's what will start the false Sukkot and lead into Halloween. Then the stars fell from heaven, from heaven to earth, just as a fig tree. So there'll be smaller, fig-sized, small asteroids when shaken by a strong wind. So if we're on a full moon and you see figs falling from the skies, That sounds like 1833, and we'll talk about 1833 later on. When shaken by a strong wind, the sky receded like a scroll. I'm arguing that's the electromagnetosphere, and I'll show you a chart later on. It's a tiny little chart. Sorry about that. The electromagnetosphere, first we had the Carrington event of 1859. Then by 1880, we started to notice it was thinning, and it started to thin more and more and more and more, and get out basically to a 10% loss of the electromagnetosphere by the year 2000. Then it thinned another 5% from 2000 to 2010. Now it's thinning much faster right now, and the European Space Agency and NASA are no longer reporting because it's thinning so fast. That's not a good sign, people. That is the scroll, the sky basically like a scroll being rolled up. These layers of ozone are being wiped away, and every mountain and every island was moved from its place. That's continental drift. Now, I'm arguing based on Genesis 10:25 and also 1 Chronicles 1 that during the time of Peleg, and I'll show you those verses in the next slide, during that time, there was continental drift and people survived. Now, there will be death and there will be, fear, but I think you're better off knowing that people survived during that time. Many scholars cite that because of that particular thing, every mountain and island was moved from its place. That means that's a death level. That's an extinction level event. It's not, guys, and I'll show you the verses in the next slide. When there is kings, the rulers, and the generals, that's what these guys are doing right now. Elon Musk is building underneath the earth so he can protect himself, and all the other rich people are going to New Zealand to build their little bunkers and stuff like that. All those guys are preparing right now to go under the ground. So all the kings, the rulers, the generals, the big tech, the rich and the mighty, indeed everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in caves and among the rocks and the mountains, and said to the rocks and mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of the one sitting on the throne and from the fury of the Lamb, for the great day of their fury is come, and who can stand? That's Revelation 6:12 through 17. Most men out there teaching eschatology are saying that's the end of days. No, we just continue through into the trumpets. We continue through to the bowls because they errantly look at this and say extinction level event. No. Here we go. So this is during the time of Peleg. So this is Genesis 10:25. And Ever was born to two Banim. The Shem, the name of one was Peleg. So that's his name. And what does that mean? Well, for in his days, the Haaretz, the earth, was divided. And his brother's name Shem, was Yoktan. So that's one verse that proves that during the time of continental drift, people continued on. They just moved from continent to continent as things shifted around. The sons of Shem, Elam, Shashur, Arpachshad, Lud, Aram, Uz, Hul, Geter, and Meshech. Arpachshad fathered Shelach, and Shelach fathered Ever, and to Ever were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg. Division. Yep, because it was during his lifetime that the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Yoktan. Not an extinction level event, people. It's survivable. They survived. They just moved. So we might be moving too. So now we're going to move on to the witness, which is Sadhu's comment that it seems like the next event is going to be earthquakes. So here's the seven seals on top, the white horse, the red horse, the first four horsemen. Then basically it's not the souls crying out. That is going to be martyrdom. Then the earthquakes, the sun, the moon, the stars, and then the silence in heaven. And once again, another chart on the upper right, and 144,000 sealed between the 6th and the 7th. And cosmic changes. So we're talking about cosmic things. Okay. So Sadhu's comment, let's look at the Greek down below. It will be raised for nation, ethnos, so ethnic group, unto epi would be against more, nation, ethnos. So that would be like the first seal. Kingdom against kingdom. Second seal. Yeah, that basileia, that works. I never looked at it that way, but it does work. And there will be famines. Limo. Okay, so limo would be, crop failures, things like that. That's the third seal. Then plagues. Well, plagues are loimo, and that's in certain Greek texts. I think this is the most accurate. That's the fourth seal. And then the sixth seal, quakes. So that would be seismoi. And kata. Kata is more like a swirling, so keep that in mind. You should see swirling quakes. And topos, places, locations, earthly locations, topography. And then So you're saying, but the fifth seal isn't there, so it can't be linear, and that's why I never looked at it this way. Well, the fifth seal is kind of a parenthetical comment. Like, it is not a judgment against the people, it's just that the people will go and martyr the believers. So I put 24:9 from Matthew, and they will condemn to death you. That is martyrdom. Now, it's apoktenu, but it's that's killing, which is a standard word for killing. But in this case, it refers to you, so that's martyrdom. And it's outside of that because it's not really the same type. It is a seal, obviously, but it's not like the other ones, which are judgments against all of the peoples. And so Sadhu is interesting this way. Whether you agree with him or not, it's interesting to see it as a linear fashion with then the fifth seal outside. And, I've dug through Matthew 24 for years, and I've never seen this linear birth pang concept. So I love it. I love it. So let's read Matthew 24, and then you'll see it in context. Beware that no man no man will deceive you, for many will come in my name, and they will say, I am the living God, the Messiah, and they will deceive many. And it is going to happen that you are going to hear battles and reports of wars. Take heed that you will not be troubled, for it is necessary that all these things should happen, but it will not yet be the end. For nation will rise against nation. That's seal 1. Ethnos, ethnos, so ethnic groups. 2, kingdom against kingdom. Yeah, that would be correct. And that sounds like seal number 2. And there will be famines. That works for seal 3. Plagues, 4. 6 is earthquakes in various places. All right, so that works. Once again, martyrdom is outside of it, and it would be based on those other types of seals. That's why I never really looked at it as a linear fashion before. But these things are the beginning of sorrows, and then they will deliver you to suffering, and they will kill you, and you will be hated, well, if that's believers, because hated by all nations because of my name. Okay, that's believers. Then many will be subverted, and they will hate one another and betray one another, and many false prophets, oh, we're seeing those guys, will arise and deceive many, and because of the abundance of evil, the love of many will grow cold, but whoever will persevere until the end will have life, and the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world for the testimony of all the nations, and then the end will come. Okay. It makes sense. This is the Aramaic version. It was the easiest for me to pull my translations through from the Greek in this case. And the Aramaic's interesting. I think that's Roth's version. And I'm going to meet with him on October 2nd, so that'll be fun. Andrew Gabriel Roth and this Aramaic version. So, once again, we will look into this magnetic event of 1859, and I think that caused the thinning of the magnetosphere after that, because we started to notice it by 1880. So the Carrington event occurred in 1859. It was a massive CME that just shocked the world. It burned the telegraph lines. It burned people. It would have wiped out all of our satellites today. It would have wiped out all of our cell phones. It would have wiped out everything, and your cars. And so we would be in the Stone Age if this happened. And that was 1859. It can happen again. Ben is saying because the electromagnetosphere was thick back then, it wasn't that bad, but now it's thin, and all that stuff is going to get through. So whenever you see a CME on the sun, you're going to notice it more down here. You'll see more aurora borealis, and you'll feel it more. You'll feel it in your heart because we're electric. Your heart is electric. So if there's an electrical surge, you're going to notice it. And you can't put, well, you could put lead over your heart, I guess, but that would be silly. It'd be very heavy. So Ben's suspicious observers are saying we have 5 scary years ahead from 2022 to 2027 with more CMEs, more activity, more everything. And so we're going to hit solar cycle 25 very shortly here. That means the CMEs are going to be up. The shields are going to be down. We'll have more earthquakes and extreme weather dead ahead. That's what Ben is saying. So that matches up with what the Bible is saying if you look at it as a linear process. He's also saying that we will have problems like this: impactors, earthquakes, volcanoes. There could become a tilt occurring, which means that the poles will start moving. We should notice a wobble. Well, we're noticing the wobble. The North Pole is moving. There's a rotational change potentially. That could speed up the days. The mantle is heaving, lithosphere displacement, and this is from December 28th of 2019. So these things are starting to happen, and they actually sound biblical, people. If you go to Isaiah 24 or Isaiah 34, you'll see the earth being drunk, like a drunk wobbling. Ben, again from suspicious observers, cosmic rays thin the ozone. It's not global warming. It's not men burping, okay? Or cows farting. That's not what it is. It's not global warming. Sunlight makes ozone, but particle energy destroys ozone. Going forward, cosmic rays are going to have greater access to the atmosphere. They will penetrate to the mantle. And as a result of that, and this is a scientific article over here, cyclic ozone holes prove the cosmic ray driven mechanism. So this guy has no investment in global warming that I can see. He's willing to report the truth, which is that electrons are causing the thinning of our magnetosphere. Particle energy is doing this. And we don't control the sun, okay? God does. So magnetic reversal, Ben is arguing that it could happen. It's happened before, and it could happen again. He cites 12,000 years ago, 24,000 years ago, 36,000 years ago, different events. Well, he's saying what you will notice as the magnetosphere weakens, faster upper level winds, which should increase the storms, increase pressure differentials, electrodynamic cloud microphysics, other issues. And then there's a little tiny chart down below that shows the Earth's weakening shield and how I cited 1880 to 2000 to 2010, another thinning, and then by 2015 they aren't reporting it anymore. So you'll notice more lightning, more tornadoes, more hail, more problems. And the core is wobbling. Well, it's not exactly. It would be oblong anyway at the poles, but the core is wobbling. And so what causes polar reversal? Well, that's seal number 6. And what could occur? We don't know, but it's going to give us extreme weather swings. Okay, so seal 6 sounds like what I quoted you from Genesis 10:25. The energy causes pole shift. Ben is arguing that the poles seem to be heading towards the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle, which is near China. Very interesting, people, that's where it would go. So he's saying the poles are going to move, and they will have pole meeting places, and it would be horrific, but it is biblical. It is. And so it's the energy that drives this. That sounds like Peleg, people, and that is survivable. It's not pretty, but it's survivable. So you're going to say, well, and we also have asteroids coming at us. That's part of Seal 6 and Trumpet 1 and Trumpet 2, and I'll go through those in just a minute here. The main thing is these are ELEs. Yeah, but here's the worst part. If a big one comes at us, we aren't going to be able to stop it. According to the Daily Mail and their citing scientists, the scientists from NASA and probably the ESA got together and figured, can we take a nuclear bomb, send it up, and blow up a giant asteroid and protect us from it? No, it won't work. So they're positive now that if the asteroid comes at us and it's the size of a mountain, it's going to hit us, and there's not a doggone thing that we can do about it. So there wouldn't be enough time, there wouldn't be enough power. It's going to hit us. So we'll see if it ever does. It's biblical though, and we'll show you that in just a minute. So I'm going through the birth pangs and showing you that you need to be prepared for the end of Seal 3, which is, food prices on the rise. You're seeing that already. Seal 4, you should see death. Death, 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 death. And I'm sorry if it doesn't edify you, but the problem is it's real. Okay? Then Seal 5 is martyrdom, and Seal 6, and we've kind of gone through those. But then there's some things outside, and I'm going to try to show that to you later on in the later slides. That there's 1260 days, then there's 1290, then there's 1335, and I'll try to show you that. So we'll go into the tribulation at some point in time. Not yet. Great tribulation the last 3.5 years. Not yet. So now first we're going to go through the trumpets and show you that the first 4 are environmental. So they are explainable. And if you were Pharaoh's sorcerers, you would explain it basically the same way today when we hit the first four trumpets. The last 3 are called the 3 woes, and they'll kill 1/3 of the population, and then Gog and his armies will move on to Israel, I believe. So the first trumpet is going to be hail and fire and blood thrown down, then a burning mountain. So you'll see things get successively larger that are coming from outside to inside our earth. And so I'll show you that better in a little while, but the main thing is look at the break between the first 4 trumpets and then the 3 woes after that. The 3 woes are unexplainable, but the first 4 I'll show you in terms of Egypt are explainable environmentally, cosmologically, so to speak. And just be aware of that. So let's go through the trumpets a little bit so that we can take you out and kind of show you the Gog aspects of how we push out past what seems to be the end of the Great Tribulation. So when the Lamb broke the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for what seemed like a half an hour. And so this is that time frame when you're in the 7th seal, but you're sealing the 144,000. That was chapter 7. Okay, so this is 8. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, were given 7 shofars. Another angel came and stood at the altar with golden incense bowl, was given a large amount of incense to add to the prayers of God's people. On the gold altar in front of the throne, the smoke of the incense went up with the prayers of God's people from the hand of the angel before God. Then the angel took the incense bowl, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it down on the earth. And there followed peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. I don't know why I didn't highlight that, but keep in mind the earthquakes are not just the 6th seal. There will be more of those, and they move through the Great Tribulation. The first one sounded as earthquake, and there was hail and fire mingled with blood, and it was thrown down upon the earth, and a third of the earth was burned up, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. If you are a sorcerer with Pharaoh, or you're an environmentalist today, you'll be able to explain this cosmologically. You will. And continuing on, you'll be able to explain this cosmologically too. The second angel sounded the shofar. What looked like an enormous blazing mountain was hurled into the sea. A third of the sea turned to blood. A third of the so once again, this is something coming from outside our earth and hitting us. And a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed, and a third angel sounded the shofar, and a great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky. So they're getting bigger. Do you notice that? Everything that's coming from outside the earth. This is not global warming. It's explainable by global warming. I mean, that's how they're going to do it, but that's a sorcerer speaking to you. Fell from the sky, and a third of the rivers and the springs of the water, and the name of the star was bitterness. So this is potable waters are destroyed at this point in time. When it's the seas, that's not really potable waters. And on to the springs of water, the name was bitterness, wormwood, and a third of the water became bitter, wormwood, and the people died from the water that had been turned bitter. The fourth angel sounded the shofar, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon. That's not global warming, but they'll explain it as global warming, that somehow a cow fart has caused this. And a third of the stars, and a third of them were darkened, and the day had a third less light, and the night likewise. Then I looked, and I heard a lone eagle give a loud cry as he flew in midair, saying, "Woe, woe, woe to the people living in the earth because of the remaining blasts from the 3 angels who have yet to sound their shofars." It makes sense scientifically so far. Things get wacky after this. When you get to the 3 woes, it'll be the finger of God. And I'll explain that from Exodus. So, but Pharaoh in turn called for the sages and sorcerers. We have them today too. And they too, the magicians of Egypt, did the same thing, making use of their secret arts. And these guys have their scientific methods, and each one threw a staff down and they turned into snakes. Okay, so maybe that's AI, I don't know. But Errant's staff swallowed up theirs. Nevertheless, Pharaoh was hard-hearted. Okay, and he didn't listen. So that's Exodus 7, and then continuing on, when the waters turned to blood, the magicians of Egypt did the same thing with their secret arts. I'm arguing that our magicians in the current days are going to argue global warming as these environmental disasters hit. They'll do the same thing that Pharaoh's courtiers did. And Pharaoh was hard-hearted, and so they couldn't drink the river water. That sounds like what I just read to you from the I'm blanking on which trumpet it was. And then Errant put out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered, and the magicians did the same with frogs, with their secret arts, and brought up frogs from the land of Egypt. So once again, they're explaining things away in their secretive way. But then, eventually, Aaron reached out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the ground, and there were lice on people and animals, and all the dust of the ground became lice. Throughout the whole land of Egypt, the magicians turned with their secret arts to produce lice, but they couldn't. There was lice on people and animals. And then the magicians said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God. it will be the finger of God the whole time. But at some point in time, you're just going to have to admit that is the finger of God by the time you get to the fifth trumpet. You should. But if you're listening to me and everything goes along linearly, you should know where you are in the process. I can't predict anything. I can just tell you that this seems to be the process moving forward. So obviously, you could explain things away cosmologically for a period of time, but eventually you just have to say this is the finger of God, and you'll know. Now, continuing on, we're contrasting in a chiastic way, a poetic way, we'll say, the seven trumpets versus the seven bowls, and the seven seals are outside the Great Tribulation. There's a chiastic structure here. That doesn't mean to negate Revelation as if it's just poetry. It is poetry. So it would be like saying a song that you like happens to be poetic in addition to sounding really good. It has good hooks and good whatever. So the bottom line is that just adds a layer of complexity onto it when you see chiastic structure. So this first trumpet is on earth. This first bowl is on earth. The second is on sea. The second bowl is on sea. The third is potable H2O. The third bowl is potable H2O. The sun darkening, sun burns, similar. Abyss opens, darkness. Euphrates Gog, that's what we're going to hammer away because some of these other ones are very, very complex. We covered the first four environmental trumpets, and we're not really on the bowls at all. But I wanted to cite Euphrates Gog, because it helps to see the outside portion, and then heaven opens and heaven opens. So once again, chiastic structure doesn't negate Revelation, and as many Lutherans, especially the more Orthodox Lutherans, we'll call them, more conservative, and many Catholics and many Eastern Orthodox and things like that, they'll read Revelation, but they don't like Revelation, and they see the chiastic structure. Most of my conservative Lutherans say it's poetry, because it's chiastic. Well, that too. Okay, so now I'm going to contrast the sixth angel sounding his shofar with the sixth one pouring out the bowls. And I'm going to try to argue that this is going to be outside of the final 1260 days. We'll see if you like what I have to say. The sixth angel sounded the shofar, and I heard a voice from the four horns on the golden altar before God saying to the sixth angel, the one with the shofar, release the four angels that are bound at the great river Euphrates. Just keep that in mind. And they were released. These four angels had been kept ready for this moment, for this day and the month, to kill a third of mankind. And so they are tasked with killing a third of mankind. They are basically assembling Gog. So Gog, let's argue that it's Obama, is going to get together these armies, basically 200 million soldiers, to go and first kill a third of mankind, and then to kill those in Israel. He has a greater purpose there. And so what you should see then is the contrast with the great river Euphrates, with the sixth one pouring out its bowl, and the water dried up in order to prepare the way for the kings of the east. And I saw three unclean spirits that looked like frogs. Sounds like Egypt again. They came from the mouth of the dragon and from the mouth of the beast. So we know that dragon is Satan. The beast should be the Antichrist, and the mouth of the false prophet. That sounds like Pope Francis right now. Even Catholics are saying that. They are miracle-working demonic spirits which go out to the kings of the world, of the whole inhabited world, to assemble them for the war of the great day of Adonai Tezvaot. That's God's war against Gog. Look, I am coming like a thief. How blessed are those who stay alert and keep their clothes clean. We talk about clean clothes every single week. That's one of my last slides. And so you don't want to be walking naked. Remember the guy that was with Jesus when they came to the Mount of Olives to arrest him, and he ran away naked? Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. Don't be the naked guy. Okay? You want to have clean clothes. Clean clothes are technically keeping the mitzvah. And some other day, if you want to ask me that personally, I'll show you the verses. It's basically Revelation 15:4 and Revelation 19:8. These clothes are keeping the good things. It's technically the hook, the things we don't even understand, like Sabbath, festivals, things like that. Okay? And so don't be naked. Wear good, clean clothes. And the place in the Hebrew tongue is called Har Megiddo. And so that is, technically a mountain of Megiddo. Yeah, there's no mountain there. So there are other people that argue, and they're smart people that argue this is actually Jerusalem. I'm going to argue that's the Megiddo area, that it's a much larger war, and well, we'll see. Anyway, so that's Revelation 16 versus Revelation 9. Very similar sounding, and I believe that what you're seeing is Gog Mass in Revelation 9, and go out and head over across the river Euphrates to go then and kill Israel, because he's already killed a third of mankind. He has a task in the first place. So we're going to lay it out for you a little bit more, and show you based on how the trumpets seem to be announced, and then the judgment hits 15 days later. So a new moon announces, the judgment falls on a full moon, and then you have 150 days, and the 150 days are listed in Revelation chapter 9 two times. So I'm arguing that it's going to be a consistent thing throughout the Great Tribulation. Basically, Tishri 1, or yeah, well, we'll start with Tishri 1 to Nisan 1, to Tishri 1 to Nisan 1, and back and forth. And then the judgments are passed out basically on the full moon each time, whether it's 14 or 15 days, it doesn't matter. I'm showing 15 just to be consistent, but it's basically, that's how it works out going forward, I think, during the trumpets. And Gog, you can see there, we already read it, Gog seems to pop up at the sixth trumpet to start killing the third of mankind. And then he eventually crosses the Euphrates as we head into the bowls, and he tries to kill off all of Israel, and we have the Gog-Magog war. But it's going to be outside of this time frame when he's finally destroyed. And I'll show you those verses in just a moment here. So basically, this is the process. Again, about every 6 months, you've got the 150 days, you've got the announcement, and that seems to work through the 7 bowls, okay? So if you want to pause it and look at this more specifically, you can. I'm just arguing that the 6th bowl, there is Gog with the green arrow, is way out at the end of both of those sequences. And then, oh, the motorcycle just revved up. Hopefully you can hear that. The rapture doesn't occur before we go in, but Gog does pop up, and Gog should be alive right now. The 6th bowl pops up close to the end, okay, and Gog is defeated. I'm arguing outside. And so let's look at it this way. Down below, the seasons of Teshuvah, which is repentance, the 40 days and 40 nights, going up to Yom Kippur. Look at Sukkot. It's outside of Yom Kippur. And really the last day for Yeshua to return seems to be Yom Kippur, right at the big trumpet blast. And so then Sukkot is outside. And the verses are interesting. We'll get to those in just a moment. So I want you to see it from outside of this time frame, and why Daniel 12 talks about that. So that's what's going to be going on. This is done by Doug Krieger on the right-hand side. Sorry about the motorcycle. I didn't expect that right now. He is a loud guy. He woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, too. I don't know why. So anyway, the main thing is it's listed as 1,260 days, 1,260 days, 30 days, and 45 days, 1,335 to be total. And this is found in Daniel. So Daniel 12 on the right, on the left-hand side. But those with discernment will understand. From the time of the regular burnt offering is taken away and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. So rather than just 1,260, there's 1,290. Blessed will be anyone who waits and arrives at 1,335. But you go your way until the end comes, then you will rest and rise for your reward at the end of days. So there's another chart directly below that. That's a pre-wrath chart. It does at least show the 35 or the 30 and the 45 days. And so when you see the 45, think about the 5-day gap. And I'm arguing that we're going to be outside of the final. So basically, Jesus returns, and then there's still things that occur. So Daniel's pointed that out. So the bottom line is that it's not just the 1260. You have to get through the 1335. And so I'm saying that it's the Gog War that's outside. It's during Sukkot. And what are the verses for that? During the Haftorah portions. Haftorah is the prophet's writings. And so that would be Zechariah 14:1 through 14:21. That's all about the Gog War. Okay, that's the first day, Sukkot 1. And then this should be Sukkot day 4, and Ezekiel 38:39. Oh, well, there you go. That's the Gog War. So those are the big readings. Now, I want you to see that man in the middle there, or the young lady. They've got the lulav and the etrog. I'm arguing that that's prayer warfare against Gog Magog as they notice that he's coming, and technically we're going to be outside of the Great Tribulation, and God is going to be wiping out Gog and his armies. They're going to be praying. The Jews and people out in the wilderness, so to speak, are going to be praying. They'll have a lulav and they'll have an etrog, and that's like stones and a sword, but it's a sword of the spirit. And it's a stone, like David versus Goliath. And so God will wipe out based on their prayers during that time and reading those verses during Sukkot. And it's outside of the Great Tribulation. So that's what I'm arguing. And so if people are trying to scare you right now, so this is an interesting one. I got bashed by this guy this week, Nathan Leal. On the left-hand side, lower left, you'll see Nathan with his first wife. Then he found a new wife that's younger and prettier, and he left his first wife. And he's saying that Trump is the Antichrist, and he's, according to a friend of mine, he's a horrible, prideful troublemaker. Yeah, his wife left him when he took up with one of his followers from Germany. She's beautiful but young, and so he's arguing, we're in the Great Tribulation, the mark is upon us. He's not accurate. And I'm citing facts and biblical facts as we go through this. So don't listen to these guys. Don't listen to them. And don't listen to these people. You can listen to them theologically, but eschatologically, this is a mess. So remember how we went through the sixth seal? The Great Lisbon Earthquake of 1755 is the sixth seal, according to Ellen White. It's not. And then in 1780, they had some darkness, a dark day, May 19th of 1780. Then in 1833, now that's really a cool time frame. They had a meteor shower like you would not believe in New York State. Gorgeous, and across kind of the northeastern part of the country. They all saw it. And so this fulfillment of prophecy in Revelation 6:12 through 14 is a series of, no, you're going to see the end times, people. You're going to see the sixth seal, and it has nothing to do with 1755 and 1833. That's poor eschatology. Whenever you hear someone say the spirit of prophecy says, just immediately just go, oh, that's Ellen White. And she's been wrong so many times. She converted the day prophecy of Daniel 8:14 into years and took it from 457 BC all the way up to 1844. And they were wrong, and you can say, well, she had nothing to do with 1844. She was there, and she blamed God for missing the date and said we need oh goodness, some judgment. What do they call it? I can't remember. It's all ridiculous. So they're going to have millions of dollars to confuse you. So just listen to people that don't say Sunday is the mark of the beast. So the players are going to be there. We don't know who the Antichrist is. We kind of know who the false prophet is. We know Barack Obama is probably Gog. There are going to be other evil players. And so keep in mind that we're going to be coming against them. But there are good people that will be on the earth. 144,000, the two witnesses. You're part of the Kedoshim, the believers. There will be angels and archangels. And then there are going to be in-between ones that you'll want to talk to. So when things start happening, you want to do your job because you want white clothes. You want to wear those garments. You don't want to be naked. It's going to be a wedding, and if you should go in with dirty garments or naked, you're not getting into the wedding. So that's the end. Be blessed. Thank you very much for your time. And now you've seen the links between those things and why I believe Sukkot is outside, and why the Gog-Magog war seems to happen after the end of the 1260 days. There seems to be this extra time frame based on Sukkot being outside Yom Kippur. There you go. Be blessed.